Welcome, Dr. Neeraj Agrawal, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Uh, Dr. Neeraj Agrawal obtained his master and PhD degree from IIT Madras and IIT Kharagpur, India, respectively in thermal engineering. He is presently associated professor and head in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Dr. B.A. Technology University, Lonar, Maharashtra, India. He has more than 70 international research publications. He is also the reviewer of many international journals like Applied Thermal Engineering Energy, IJER Energy, etc. The BTech and MTech project supervised by Dr. Agrawal has been awarded in 5th, 6th, and 9th Brier Award. Excellence in HUSA and R at national level. He has also contributed in a book chapter based on refrigeration system published by IGI Global, Hershey, Pennsylvania. Thank you, sir. Please continue.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me first thanks to ISRE chapter Ahmedabad. ISRE, which is largest society in the field of refrigeration, heating and air conditioning, doing good job, and I'm very thankful to ISRE Ahmedabad chapter for giving me this opportunity to talk before the budding engineers, learners, whatever I have earned over the years. And I'm also thankful to Dr. Gupta or Dilip Kumar Gupta, who is close friend of mine, for giving me this opportunity to talk on this platform and sharing the knowledge. While going through that video or while listening this video, even in that video also they have talked about the sustainability, which is a watchword, which is a keyword. And whatever technology one has to adopt, one has to think, one has to promote in today's scenario, it should be sustainable. When we go for the sustainable, that means that technology should go with hand in hand or should maintain the harmony with the nature, and that is what it should be sustainable. Sustainable means without harming our mother earth. And when we go for the refrigeration or heating or air conditioning, basically this is the process. And as you know, with the from the fundamental laws of thermodynamics, that refrigeration is basically, or you can say, the achieving the cooling. And cooling, or basically we say the refrigeration, where one is to maintain the temperature lower than the ambient temperature. So as per the second law of thermodynamics, it is an energy intensive process. And air conditioning, it is directly related to refrigeration, because if there is no refrigeration, then one cannot have air conditioning. And at the same time, the same way with the heating. So when these processes are energy intensive process, it consumes a significant amount of energy. And to have this energy, as you know, that to generate that energy, there are a lot of greenhouse gas generation, greenhouse gas emissions. So this is what we can say, there is one kind of indirect emissions. So one can say if there is more use of air conditioning or refrigeration, there is more generation of the greenhouse that directly affect the environment. Now look that there is some kind of paradox circle. The paradox circle is that in today's scenario, because due to enhanced economy, the more concern of the public towards health, hygiene, comfort, living standard. Now more and more people, they are going towards the opt for or going for air conditioning. At the same time,
Sir, I think slide is not visible. Please check.
yeah, that I will do.
Okay.
So all these things basically leading to the growth. Now when we say the growth, so basically more and more use of refrigerant air conditioning, it is certainly good for us, being the closely associated with HVAC in our industries. But at the same time, as just I said that this is a very highly energy intensive process. A highly energy intensive process, so one has to look that the some technology, some alternate ways through which that we can have the cooling, we can have the air conditioning, but how that technology can be make, or what, how to make it that so that it should be sustainable and it should go with the harmony of the nature. So my talk is, there is the alternate cooling solution way of sustainability. So now if you go further, so as I mentioned just now, that the HVAC and R, where the growth or progress which is happening very fast, you can say exponential growth, or the growth is with the geometric progression. Reason is that, as I mentioned over here, there are various reasons are there, because almost every technology now it is demanding the air conditioning, the increased aspiration, growth, economy. People, they are more concerned about their health, their comfort. So as I mentioned over here, 30% of energy consumption in commercial sector is HVACR and expected to rise by 12%. That means the total energy which is consumed in the commercial sector in different ways, that in that the 30% which was the HVAC and R, and it is increasing. The way you see, if you compare that 10 years before and now, you will find there the plenty of now air conditioned hospitals, shopping malls, airports, everywhere now air conditioning. Almost all the education institutes, they are also now get air conditioned. Almost all new ITs, their classrooms are air conditioned, so that the demand is increasing. So but demand is increasing, as I said again, based on the second law of thermodynamics, lot of energy consumption. And at the same time, in case of air conditioning refrigeration, one of the another factor is that means their direct emission, that is what we say the refrigerant. So we have to find some solution. So what is that? Why we? Because global warming and environmental pollution, that's what I just talked. Consumerization and modern life, that is what the reason why the HVAC is increasing. Technology advancement, just I mentioned over here. Urbanization, more and more people are shifting towards the cities. Aspiration is increasing. Now, if you say even if you look at any train, earlier there was no air conditioned coaches. Nowadays, even that the trains which are running, we are 100% air conditioned coaches. I would say that now, after down the line from 10 years now, then perhaps that the non-air conditioning coaches will not be there. The whole train will be air conditioned. Public aspiration, health and comfort, as I mentioned. Depleted energy resources, that is also because we have to find an alternate solution, because we cannot depend on that the only system which are running on the just with the conventional energy sources. explosion of information technology, data center, as I said, because data center, air conditioned data center, there is altogether area which is coming over here. Of course, the working culture. So conventional cooling technology, as you know, the vapor compression system, which is considered to be a workhorse, but at the same time, still that the maximum cooling or maximum share, it is by the vapor compression system. Not only India, even in the globally. So, but what is the problem with the vapor compression, refrigeration, and air conditioning system? It is of course completely electrical driven process, but of course some technology advancement are taking place. But by and large, there, I mean, that is a system which is completely electrical driven. But as I mentioned over here, that the still maximum share, as you said, 99.9% in 2005 in US, means still 2005, that 99.9% systems they were running on this vapor compression system. The first cost is low. Always it is good because, as I said, that means they are good, convenient, and safe in use, but of course energy intensive. Now, one of the reason, or as you know, from that 1980 it was discovered, the use of CFC, because the, as you know, the vapor compression system, the refrigerant is used, and the commonly used refrigerant like CFC, SCFC, and HFCs. So that use of CFC, SCFC, SCs cause for the destruction and ozone layer and global climate change. So now we have to find some alternate solution. This is what the I will not go in much detail. That is a vapor compression system, conventional vapor compression system. This is what the corresponding cycle. That also I will not take much time. So now, since as I said that the vapor compression system, though it is the used in maximum cases, but because due to they are energy intensive process or consume lot of direct electrical energy, and that the problem with the refrigerant. So what we have to, we are looking for high energy efficient system. One of the target, of course, that can be with the vapor compression system also. I'm not denying that, but we have to look for high energy efficient system, zero ODP and low GDP fluids, and we have to look for the system which can run the natural refrigerants, because as you know, CFC, HFC, or SCFCs, they are all not the they are harmful for the ozone layer. Reduction of direct and indirect effect. This is what we say. This total global warming potential. That means one has to reduce or one has to use the refrigerant if it gets directly, if it is get leaked, because we have to find a natural refrigerant. Indirectly means one has to reduce the energy consumption, because once the energy consumption will be, if it is less, then automatically that the greenhouse gas emission will be less. Better second law efficiency, because one cannot rely on the first law efficiency. If you look over here, compare the vapor absorption system, vapor compression system, the vapor compression system where we say the COP, but that COP is the first law COP. That may be 3, 4, but if in case of the vapor absorption system, though its COP is less than 1, but it is a true COP, and first law COP is not a true COP. So we have to look to the second law efficiency. Use of low grade and renewable energy like vapor absorption system, steam jet refrigeration, natural cooling technology such as evaporative cooling. So complete replacement of at least that here, complete replacement at least that to vapor compression system with alternate cooling technology. So now if you look at, these are the some of the technologies which are enlisted over here. This electrical, thermonic cooling, electronic cooling. Then in mechanical vapor compression system, no, this subcritical and transcritical. Okay, where there is no phase change, the air cooling. So pulse tube, ejector, vortex tube, reverse stirring, there different technology are there. Acoustic, thermoacoustic refrigeration, magnetic refrigeration. This chemical like latent heat, potential, thermal, natural. So natural cooling is also there. So they are the different cooling technology. So look over here till that the maximum share it is with the vapor compression. In vapor compression also the maximum focus was subcritical. The rest of technology, they are not in very much use basically. Electrical, the thermoelectric cooling is there. Okay, but they are still not used at the commercial level. Magnetic, it is still not at all in use at the commercial level. So we have to look the some alternate technologies. So here I will try to touch upon the some of the alternate technology. One of the like evaporative cooling, vortex tubes, use of natural refrigerant, indirect direct evaporative cooling. So that is what we will in the subsequent slides we'll see. So alternate cooling technologies which I'm going to cover, like evaporative cooling, which is basically it is a age-old technology. In it is used, or basically if you look over here in all ancient buildings, basically that kind of technique is used to cool the building. Two-state indirect direct evaporative cooling, that is also improved version of evaporative cooling. Then hybrid desiccant cooling, where the two different technologies are being hybridized. And then natural refrigerant with transcritical CO2 cooling technology. As I said over here, ki refrigerants are culprit. So we have to look for the sustainable technology. So one of the way to use the natural refrigerant, and of course vortex tubes, it is also one of the wonderful system. So these are some of the alternate cooling technologies, where basically in a one sense, if you look over here in all these technologies, there is no any kind of refrigerant or chemical which is used which can harm the environment. At the same time, relatively the energy consumption is also less. So that's why that both the problems which just I narrated, that can be solved. But of course, when we talk about the evaporative cooling, so performance wise or that the output wise, basically that is they are not that as effective as like you can see vapor compressor system, but they are very close. So with some sacrifice, one can go with the that one of the technique which is evaporative cooling. So evaporative cooling, as I mentioned, an ancient technique. As I mentioned, I mean like in earlier days, in ancient time, still it is in use, and in day-to-day life also, that is it is being used. So an ancient technique effectively used in almost all the ancient buildings across the globe, not only in India, across the globe. If you see that, that's why all our ancient buildings, they are surrounded by the water bodies. Why they are surrounded by water bodies? Because when the water flows surround the buildings, and automatically the evaporation takes place, so that the cold air, it flows across the building, and automatically one can have a cooling effect. So this evaporative cooling is one of the very in northern India. If Ahmedabad, still I remember that this of the very Ahmedabad is a place where I think that evaporative coolers are being manufactured at industrial level, which are being used at the industrial level. In many places now, even the ducting is also there. Once I visited to Bajaj Auto in Pune, and they are using the evaporative cooling very intensively for providing the cooling of the workers. And once, because due to this thing, their productivity has increased. So one can understand how it is effective. Of course, simple and inexpensive, sorry, an attractive solution for conventional cooling system. So that can be, in many places it is being used, and evaporative cooling can also be used as a subsystem for a vapor compression system. And I know that means Dr. Gupta has also done the work to using the evaporative cooling for the gas cooler cooling in the transcritical system. Effectively employment hot and dry weather condition. Of course, there are some limitation because that evaporative cooling cannot be used in the coastal region. Application in hot industry environment, as I mentioned, like it is very used. So in many hot industry, like steel industries or parts manufacturing industry, it is being very effectively used. As I have seen that, basically I have experienced that in the Bajaj Auto. So theory of evaporative cooling, on what basis it works? Of course, the whole principle of the evaporative cooling based on the adiabatic saturation. Adiabatic saturation means the air flows over the water, and water gets saturated. So the water gets evaporated, moisture is being transferred. So in that whole process, this is the transfer of basically air surrenders its sensible heat to the water for evaporation, and then this heat is transferred in the air in the form of latent heat. So when air surrenders its sensible heat, it means its temperature drops, but at the same time, it it is the air it takes back in the form of latent heat. That means the moisture content it increases. So this way, the temperature of the air decreases, but at the same time, at the cost of its humidity. That is what the reason that. So this whole process takes place adiabatically. So that's why we can say it is adiabatic saturation. That process can continue till the air gets saturated. That's why we say the adiabatic saturation. So here, the one of the technical term, or we say the WBT, or wet bulb temperature of the ambient or of the surrounding air, that plays a very important role, because in evaporative cooling, the air cannot be cooled lower than the wet bulb temperature. That the process, the kind of process which takes place, that we say the cooling and humidification. As I mentioned there, that there is a combined heat and mass transfer. It is a simultaneously, as I mentioned over here, air surrenders sensibly takes back to the, and there the evaporation takes place. So combined heat and mass transfer. So that's why I mean that doing experimentation or evaporative cooling is relatively easy, but doing the theoretical work, it is really challenging, because they are both the heat and mass transfer both are involved. Air gets cooled up to WBT. That's why it's, as I said over here, this is limitation. Conversion of sensible to latent heat, that as I explained over here. So this is a very typical simple diagram of evaporative cooling. As you go to hot air, then this is a pad that water falls. So that means now here, if you look over here, the performance of that evaporative cooling very much depends on that pad quality, density of the pad, thus basically its retention capacity of the water, how that the basically it's the structure, that plays a very important role over here in case of when we talk about the evaporative cooling. So look over here, this is the wet bulb temperature. So across the wet bulb temperature here, you see the temperature has dropped from this to this substantial temperature drop. The maximum one can be dropped up to here, as you know, this is what the wet bulb temperature of the air. So this is the psychometric representation. Then practically, but it can be cooled over here, then it is supplied in the inside the room. So this is what one can look over here. So one can see over here, as the air gets cooled, its temperature drops, but humidity increases, and then air it is being supplied inside the room. So when it is supplied inside the room, it picks up the heat, so its temperature increases, and also there is some addition of the moisture by the basically occupant, so humidity also slightly increases. So what I have done some experiments on that. So this is what I am in the subsequent slide. I will show you something like that. So how basically in the one of the my project that on the evaporative cooling, taking two different kind of pad material, aspin and cellulose, and that is what the some we have taken some modification the design. So look over here that the as far as the energy consumption is just 18 watt. It is a one pump and the fan that to be of not more than, you can say, like even it was not even the somewhere you can say half a kilowatt or even less than that. So look over here the kind of energy input. So look over here, there are two different kinds, cellulose and aspen wood. So this is what the two kind of pads. And now this is the one design which I have used over here. So this is what look over here. These are all three sides. There are pads over here. This is the motor conventional. But here at the top, the one box is created, and that water which is at the at quite low temperature up to a temperature of WBT, that water is it is pumped, and then this water it is designed in such a way that the rate at which the water goes down and falls over the pad and the rate at which it is pumped. So rate at which goes down, it is less. So always here is some water level is maintained, and that water at the temperature of the WBT of incoming air or slightly higher than the WBT, then that basically chamber can be used to keep the commodity cool, like you can say vegetables or any other things in the summer. So that is what the basic concept of that kind of design. So this is what the basically a simple water pump. This is what, and this is the conditioned space. How the supply air, the media pad. This is experimental test facility. The tests were conducted with the two, as I mentioned, media pad, Aspen board, and cellulose, and that varying flow rate to optimize that incline of the slot. What is that incline of slot? That is like, let me explain with you. So look over here that here in the slots are there, and here is the fan. So air is being sucked from here is the fan, air is being sucked from the bottom side. So look over here that at the initial beginning itself, there is the maximum contact of air and water. So the maximum heat transfer takes place or maximum evaporation takes place at the point at which the air sucked. Now what happened over here, that one thought was given, if suppose this here, if I can make some slot which is inclined, so when the water falls on that, so the maximum water get accumulated at that point, at this point, maximum water gets accumulated. So that means when the water more will be over here, then the performance may increase. So that is what the basically concept is used. So inclined of the slot. And there are the two parameters, saturation efficiency. This is what T0 minus Ts means actual divided by T0 is the initial, and this is the practical temperature drop. This is a maximum possible, and energy efficiency ratio. So how much mass flow rate of air, temperature drop, and how much is the work input. So work input in the form of pump and this thing. So look over here. This is the one result. So here the air flow rate in cubic meter per second. This is the saturation efficiency. Now look over here that the saturation efficiency in case of Aspen wood, that is higher compared to the saturation efficiency in case of cellulose pad. But one thing is common in both the cases, there is a one flow rate at which that the saturation efficiency is max, and that comes out to somewhere at the flow rate of 0.57. Now, what is the reason is that this kind of nature? Because you see, if suppose that the air flow rate, if it is lower than a certain optimum flow rate, then why the saturation efficiency is low? Because that by the time the air flow rate is so low that the air gets evaporated, but by the time the air also picks up the heat and the water is not sufficient enough, so there is no proper evaporation takes place over here. But at the same time, if you increase that means we have to match in such a way that the rate at which the water falls and the rate at air reaches over here, they should complement to each other. Now, suppose here, if the air flow rate is very high, then air basically that the air is not getting time to come in proper contact with the water, so that the proper evaporation can take place. So that's why here also at higher rate the evaporation or saturation efficiency is low. And at the same time, if it is lower than that also, then also the saturation efficiency. So this is what the point at which the one has to maintain. So that's why one has to maintain a proper flow rate. So when we have to look for that, the selection of the fan in the evaporative cooler, then one has to go with that. One has to comply that at what rate the water falls, and that rate at which the basically the flow rate of the fan. At the same time, you see that one of the very important factor over here, the pressure drop, because as you know, when the air is being sucked from the pad, so pad is some kind of hurdle. So what will happen over here? There the pressure drop takes place. So now the more pressure drop, there is more energy consumption of the fan. So look over here, the pressure drop as air flow rate increases, definitely the pressure drop increases. This is a normal phenomena. But the pressure drop, it is more in case of cellulose pad, sorry, less compared to aspen wood. So aspen wood, the pressure drop is more in aspen wood. So pressure drop is more. So, but look over here that in case of previous graph, aspen wood gives the better saturation efficiency, but the pressure drop is more. When pressure drop is more means it consumes more power. So now one has to look at totality, because due to high saturation efficiency, the aspen wood may be good in terms of the performance with respect to drop in temperature in a given time. But at the same time, if you look over here, it consumes more power, and it is a substantial difference over here. So this is in from this point of view, the cellulose pad is better. One has to look the other aspect also. Then this is what the saturation efficiency. As you look over here, wet wall depression. Definitely, wet wall depression plays a very important role. So as the wet wall depression increases, because there is a difference between dry wall temperature and wet wall temperature. That means as the dry wall temperature increases, that means the things become more and more drier. So definitely the performance will be better. But in this case also, aspen would perform better because it is there. Now, as I said over here, I have also tried to some kind of inclination slide, as I was telling, so that the more and more water can accumulate towards the end of the evaporative cooler, from where the air gets entered. So there are some, but perhaps we could not record that. So there is not. So this is what the thing over here on the wet wall depression. So now look overall, if you see over here, cellulose pad and aspen wood. So with the cellulose pad, the optimum flow rate is almost same. There is some difference. In aspen wood it is 0.58 and cellulose pad is 0.57. But the pressure drop, if you look over here, cellulose pad pressure drop is 2 mm and in aspen wood it is 3.4. So with aspen wood the pressure drop is basically more. Power consumption, look over here. How much difference is there? It is pretty high, 90.32. Saturation efficiency, of course, aspen wood is 7.9. Durability, once you buy the cellulose wood, it can run for 2 to 6 years, but it is 5 months. And energy efficiency ratio also, it is something like 0.4, 47 point, 47 point something, 47.75, and it is 44.88. So now look over here, though that the saturation efficiency of aspen wood, it is higher, but in totality, if you look over here, that the cellulose pad is better. That's why now I think down the line till 2005 or 2010, the people, they were using aspen wood, but nowadays the entire evaporative industry, they use the cellulose pad only. It is very good. I mean, there is no sagging problem. So this is what basically the conclusion. Now, of course, but when we go with the kind of evaporative cooling which we had discussed, this is a direct evaporative cooler. So now what is there is some limitation of direct evaporative cooling, ineffective in humid and temperate condition. That means they are not much effective. That dry bulb temperature less than 40 degree and WBT is greater than 20 degree. Of course, evaporative cooling, it is well known fact that because high speed is required, so there is noise and vibrations. Then since that there is no control of humidity, and what happens over here, there is the flow of air, because due to flow of air, that within the room there a lot of draft is formed. That means there is not uniform cooling. One part where the air reaches, you find that it is a pretty cool, and other part there is no cooling. That is what the reason whenever the evaporative cooling is there. So it is always there, people, they try to sit in front of evaporative cooler. Okay, some kind of fight is there, but in case of like air conditioning, the entire room gets air conditioned. No control of humidity, restricted cooling, as I said over here, only up to WBT, high maintenance, and disease prone, because as you know, that means because the continuously remains water, so accumulation of water, so disease prone. So there is another concept which we say that indirect evaporative cooling. What is the advantage of indirect evaporative cooling? In direct evaporative cooling, as you know, that there is drop in temperature. That's in case of the dry region, like in the Gujarat and in the your Ahmedabad, or you can say in the that place like Rajasthan, where one can get the temperature drop at the order of with the evaporative cooling of 30 degree, even 25 degree. But of course, that humidity increases. So now, what is the solution? If we can have some solution where with the indirect evaporative cooling, one can have a temperature drop, but the rise in humidity is not that high as like in the evaporative cooling. So look over here, this is a two-stage direct evaporative cooling. So this is one is the indirect, where that warm air gets cooled in not in direct contact with the water, rather than through the here we use the direct evaporative cooling technique to cool the surfaces with the secondary. So there is the secondary air flows. So at the one side, the direct evaporative cooling takes place, because due to this thing the surfaces gets cooled, and these surfaces form the channel, and that warm air flows in this channel. So air gets cooled in that channel, and then it goes to that direct evaporative cooling. So one can see over here there is the no change in humidity, but there is the drop in temperature, and then there is the direct. So always remember this thing, it cannot be direct and indirect, it is always indirect and direct. Look over here, if I go directly from here, so here, if I go directly here, so this one will go over here to have a same temperature drop. Okay, and here humidity is pretty high compared to this one. So this is what the advantage. So here, as I mentioned, sensible cooling followed by adiabatic saturation, effective in all weather conditions, because even in the high humidity condition also one can achieve, but better humidity control, better cooling, energy efficiency, less latent load. This is what the reason. So now if you look over here, experimental set, that again, I have done some experimentation. This is what the, basically you can see over here, what kind of different specification. These are the some. So as I was mentioning with channel, so here air flows. So this is what we have done, this fabrication. This is a pad. This is a duct was formed, primary and secondary. So this is what the overall picture. So look over here. This is indirect evaporative cooling. Second air goes over here. This is the air gets cooled, that flows in the channel. Air, primary air flows over here. That air flows in the channel, and then it is the bidirect. So in this way, the air gets cooled. So this is what the system, as you can see over here. This is what this is what your indirect, indirect, and then it is direct, and then goes further. So this is what the system. So operating parameter, these are the operating parameters, which are water flow rate, primary rate, secondary flow rate, heat transfer, pad material, ambient condition, which will vary. So look over here. This is what the water flow rate of two different kind of water fluid. We can 12 liter per minute and water fluid 8 liter per minute. So secondary air outlet temperature. So look over here that the secondary air velocity, that in for both the cases, there is one point at which the secondary outlet temperature is minimum. Okay. So this is again the one has to use maintain this particular air velocity, so that the channel gets cooled more and more. So this is what the conclusion. And now look over here, this is what the psychometric representation. So how we got the temperature drop up to, you can say the air supply temperature was somewhere 37 degrees Celsius. Then in the evaporative cooling, sorry, indirect evaporative was cooled up to somewhere 33, and then in direct it was cooled up to 30 degrees, 30 from 29 degrees Celsius. So this is what the variation of saturation efficiency, velocity increases saturation efficiency, but beyond that, it was arrested. Then there is another concept which we say that hybrid desiccant cooling. So hybrid desiccant cooling means there is a combination of vapor compression system and the desiccant. So like this is the system which is used in high humidity condition, high latent load, and where that basically high latent load means basically that the sensibility factor is pretty low because due to high sensible load. So because for high sensible load, sorry, high latent load, one has to reduce the ADP of the coil, and once the ADP is reduced, so unnecessarily there is penalty on the vapor compression system. So the solution is one can go with the hybrid desiccant cooling. Conventional process cooling and dehumidification needs low ADP. As I said, low ADP energy inefficiency because hybrid of two system desiccant wheel followed by vapor compressor. As I mentioned, latent load removal by desiccant wheel means whatever the latent load it is removed by desiccant wheel. So there is no need to drop in temperature of the cooling coil. Removal of sensible load by vapor compressor system DX coil. Wheel needs to be regenerated after each cycle, of course, because that wheel absorb the moisture for the next cycle to basically make it ready for the next cycle. It has to be heated, so there is sensible energy it is consumed. Air gets heated after removal of latent load, needs to be cooled before passing DX coil. Cooling can be done employing indirect evaporative cooling or noctical cooling or mixing of recirculated air. So this is what the phenomena which you can see, which I have used over here. So this is what the thing of hybrid process here. This is a regeneration heat source. So this is desiccant cool. So moisture is being out. So all the latent load is being removed over here. So air become dry. But dry, not only dry, it gets heated up. So by this air is to be cooled and then it is to be supplied in the conditioned space. Nocturnal cooling, as you know, the nocturnal cooling means because by the nocturnal cooling, the water temperature can be dropped, and that water can be used for the cooling purpose in the basically in the hybrid system after the dehumidification. So that is also, so in this way what happened, one, we are using the natural cooling and it is being used in the hybrid system. So this is what the nocturnal cooling, heat dissipation is carried by the long wave radiation from a building to a sky, that is called radiative cooling or nocturnal cooling. Radiative cooling is the night sky, so temperature can be dropped. Roof up means from the top of the water. At night, heat losses the ability to cool air as roofs can experience a temperature drop of 6 to 20 degree below ambient, just you can imagine. Principle of passive cooling of the building based on the thermal inertia principle. That is what the basically thermal, that's why that all old ancient buildings, they have the very thick stones. So thermal inertia principle. So that is what the cooling coil which was manufactured by us, and where that you can see over here. Hello.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Yes. Just I'm going. My slide is not moving. I don't know what happened.
सर आप शेयरिंग स्टॉप हो गया, आप शेयरिंग करके कर लीजिए, हो जाएगा.
Okay, okay, okay. So this is what the basically system which you can see over here. This is what the dry air dehumidifier, and this is steam generation just to add the additional moisture which we have done over here, and then it goes over here dehumidifier, the temperature indicator, and this is what the cooling coil, and this is cooling. The water is used which is nocturnally cooled, and then it goes over here. Then this is your conventional vapor compression system. So this is condenser, and then here the this DX coil, and then air goes inside. So that system we have developed inside our lab. Now look over here that how that the water cooling through nocturnal cooling. So this is in morning time, you can see the temperature can be dropped. So in evening time, the temperature is this much, but in morning that look that the temperature drop is over here. So that is what day 1, day 2, day 3 we have recorded, and so that water is used for the cooling coil. Look over here how the typical result. So typical result that outside air, when it passes the dehumidifier, so its humidity is decreased, but look the temperature is reaching somewhere 46 or 49. Then it was cooled in the sensible cooling, that means in cooling coil by using the nocturnal cooled water. And then it enters in the conventional vapor compression system. So in the conventional vapor compression system, it is basically cool, it's dehumidified, then it was supplied in the room. So that is what the typical process. So this is what we have discussed till that the evaporative cooling. Now let's have some idea about that this natural refrigerant. So natural refrigerant is one of the natural refrigerant carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is absolutely there is no harm, like you can say no ozone depletion, of course, and there is no global warming potential, but there is and as such it is safe. So this is one of the upcoming natural refrigerants. But of course, because due to carbon dioxide having altogether different properties or different characteristics, so the system is not like you can say conventional vapor compression system. So look over here, that this is what the thing over here, half cycle above the critical and half cycle below the critical. So this is the critical temperature. So look over here, that's why we say transcritical. What is the reason why this? Because this is what the thing, 31.1 degree critical temperature. Almost conventional refrigerant having the critical temperature in the range of like 70, 80, 90, 100, even more than 100. But this is what the typical, and corresponding pressure is 73. So it needs to be operated above critical. Once it is above critical means here, so automatically this increases. So correspondingly, that's why the CO2 system is known as the transcritical system, with the pretty high pressure. Operating pressure in majority of the CO2 system is above 90. So this is what, if you see that the comparison of the different refrigerant, let's say R12 or R134, very common. So look over here, as I mentioned over here, the critical temperature here, if you see 101.1, but it is 31.2. And one of the greatest advantage with the CO2 is you see the volumetric refrigerant capacity. Here you see how much difference. R134A2860, but it is 22545. That means for a given cooling capacity, that the CO2 system is very compact. So that's why one of the very great advantage of CO2 refrigeration system is in the car air conditioning. In the European countries, it is very well in use. And another advantage, it is not very energy efficiency when it is used for refrigeration, but when it is used for the heating purpose, particular heat pump, it is quite useful. So this is a typical TS and TS diagram of CO2. I will not, this is what the typical. What are the merits? As I mentioned, natural refrigerant, high volumetric cooling capacity. Natural refrigerant, absolutely there is no harm, low pressure ratio. So if you look over here, though the absolute term, the pressure is high at the gas cooler side, but an evaporator also there is a pressure is high. So though absolute term pressure is high, but ratio is less, because in case of like conventional system, the pressure is so maybe as good as like 12, but in this case the pressure is so hardly 2 or 3. Non-flammable, non-toxic, as such there is no problem. Like ammonia is very toxic, SO2 is very toxic. Okay, but CO2, there is no problem. Temperature glide, this is another advantage, because in the gas cooler there is temperature does not remain constant, because here everything is above the critical, so there is gaseous phase is there, so there is no phase change. Excellent heat transfer properties is another advantage. Compact system, and another advantage of the CO2, that means because its operation is transcritical, where pressure and temperature are independently controlled, so one can have a better COP. Salient feature of CO2, low critical temperature, high pressure difference, 3 to times larger than that, as was I mentioned over here. Not ratio, I am talking about the pressure difference between this thing. Abrupt change in property near critical point. This is what one is to when we have to design anything for CO2, one has to look that particular aspect. High pressure operation, as I mentioned, significant high pressure, higher vapor pressure. That is also one has to look into. High vapor density, that is useful while designing the expansion device for CO2. Low density ratio, that is also important factor. Low surface tension. Optimum gas cooler pressure, this is also one of the factors. So look over here, this is a typical diagram. This is your basically, if you look over here, this is a conventional and this is the this your supercritical. So that is what a typical for evaporator temperature 0 in both the cases, but look the pressure. So this is a typical diagram which explain the basically optimum pressure. I will not go in much detail. Optimum pressure means for a given temperature, this is what temperature line. One has to operate at a one particular pressure. So if you look over here, this line, there is one COP. If you increase the pressure from this to this, so gain is refrigeration is here, but work done is increased less. So but basically, for a given this temperature, if you operate this pressure, the COP will be low. But if you operate this pressure, the COP will be high. This is against that your conventional vapor compression system. In conventional vapor compression system, always as the condenser pressure increases, COP always goes down, but here it is different. So if you further increase the pressure, then further the COP decreases. So there is an optimum pressure. So one has to operate the optimum pressure. Applications, of course, automobile air conditioning, one of the sector. Simultaneously heating, cooling can be dairy application. Like in all this Scandinavian countries and Norway, this thing, CO2 is very well in use, all heating purposes. Water heating, residential heat pump. Now, I mean, now people, they are becoming more health conscious, comfort. So now in basically in many of the cities, basically now heat pump is being installed or in the many residential areas. So CO2 can be one of the very good option for heat pump application. Air heating system is not yet established. Heat pump dryer, process plant applications. So these are some applications. This is one typical system which a diagram which I had developed during my research. So you can see this is what the system, compressor, condenser. This is a prototype system which we had developed in the lab at IIT Kharagpur. This is a typical results of water fluid and gas coolant system COP. So system COP you are getting, you see somewhere 4 and 5 cooling, heating output. So this is what a typical result. Now next, if you look over here, that the vortex tube is the another one of the very basically in a sense a altogether different kind of device. So look over here, the vortex tubes, where it is simple tubes and the vortex motion form. And when the two streams are there, so here when the air flows, so look over here, the vortex is forming. And by that time, it goes over here, strike over here. And by this striking the inner loop, it is formed over here. In between, there is energy transfer takes place. So when the energy transfer takes place, so the one stream becomes hot, other stream becomes cold. So one can have a cold air and hot air. So this is a completely non-conventional kind of system. So we have done some experimentation. We have taken this experimentation, different tubes of different length, diameter of cold end. So here, if you look over here, this is called the cold end, this is called the hot end. So diameter of inlet nozzle and cone angle. Cone angle means this is the angle through which this is what the cone, where it strikes the air. This is the cone angle. And number of nozzles we have used, one. This is typical which we has basically fabricated and developed the nozzle. This is what the vortex at this end. This is cold end. This is hot end. This is the this you can conical screw, and with that opening and closing, that the control of the fluid, the air was controlled over here. So you can see over here this typical diagram. This is a typical experimental setup, which you can see over here. And this is the 3 vortex tube which you can look how 3 different L by D ratio. So L by D ratio plays an important role over here. And this is a 2 rotometers and the whole setup. This is actually we have also done some experiment with the CO2 also, the CO2 cylinder. This is a FRL unit. So look over here. So this is what the, parameters, operating parameters through which cold mass ratio is very important, which is the mass of cold, the rate of cold air divided by cold, total amount of air in. Cold and hot temperature difference, and this is the isothermal efficiency. So these are the parameters on which. So look over here, that the percentage of cold mass fraction. That means how much percentage of air, of total air, comes out from the cold end. So we have done one study, and look over here that this is a cold temperature difference. So more temperature difference means cold air, more cold air. I mean, cold, the temperature will be more. It is the air temperature, it is less. So look over here, in all the three cases, LYD ratio, different three issues, there is one flow rate at which we were getting the maximum this thing. So we got the temperature difference of the order of something like, you can say 29 degrees. 29, that means if suppose the air temperature is 49 degrees, the temperature was dropped up to even say 21 degree or so. So this is what the basically 60% cold mass fraction, as I mentioned. LYD is 17 point give the maximum cold temperature drop. So this is what some study was done. So this is basically I wanted to share with you. So I have tried to give you some idea about that. Basically, the evaporative cooling, then indirect, direct evaporative cooling, some idea about the CO2 system and the vortex tube. All these four different kind of systems, they are very non-conventional and non-traditional. Like in CO2 system, there is a CO2 refrigerant, which is natural refrigerant. Evaporative cooling is a where no refrigerant is used, and vortex tube also there is no refrigerant is used. So, so this is what I wanted to share with you. So, if you have any specific question, one can ask.
Thank you, sir. Any question from participant side? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Any question?
I have tried to finish on time.
Yeah, sir. It was a nice presentation, and of course, I would like to thanks to Dr. Neeraj Agrawal for accepting our invitation and giving the presentation in a short time. And I have not given much time for taking decision, but of course, in my request, of course, sir has given the consent, and on time he has started and everything was well. And I'd like to mention one specific point of this particular session is, generally as an HVAC engineer or HVAC field, we generally neglect some of the part like a vortex cooling or some evaporative cooling or modified part of evaporative cooling, which is having a huge potential in HVAC and all, which we generally underlook of this particular field. That sir has given kind of a spark on that particular field is I really thankful and maybe useful for our participant, maybe for industry or for development of new design of this type of system. So I again thankful to all of you and Dr. Neeraj Agrawal also for giving his precious time. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gupta ji. Thanks a lot to all the participants for listening me with sparing their time and patiently. So it was not, of course, a very high kind of technology, just simple technology. So whatever I had done with my students, so I thought let's present that.
But it's a simple technology, but huge, sir, potential to,
Yeah,
utilize.
One has to. Actually, the thing is that if you, Gupta ji, if you look over here, everything is like in circle. Circle means in a sense these technology were used in olden days. Now once again we are like CO2 also till 1930 or 19,000. Till 1900 CO2 was in use, but till 1950 it was discarded. Once again it is coming over here. The same thing evaporative cooling. So this is what the thing over here.
True, sir. Yes.
With that, I am thankful to you and thankful to State Chapter Ahmedabad for giving me this opportunity. And
Thank
I'm
you very
also-
much, sir.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank
So,
you.
Rajan sir, you take
Yes, sir.
this. You. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay,
Thank
sir. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So should I leave now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you.